Oh boy, I think this one's gonna get me in a lot of trouble.
If you're a man and this is on your For You page, please answer this hypothetical question. Let's say you met the absolute woman of your dreams. She's everything you've ever wanted and more. She's kind, she's funny, she's beautiful, she's honest, she's loyal, she's got it all. But she has one of those pages. She doesn't work with anyone else, like it's just her and you if you were like down to do that. But would that ruin it for you? Like, would you not even consider her as an option because of what she does for work, or would you be able to look past it?
All right, she's asking a legitimate question, and I have a pretty good idea why. But let me be very clear. My answer is not in any way to judge her or anyone else for that matter. But I am going to be blunt. I'm going to tell it like it is, even though I know the ladies and probably more than a few gentlemen are going to lose their minds over it. And let me start off by saying I'm going to be upfront that I'm going to answer this in two different ways. First, the way I personally view it, and secondly, how most men would answer it, which is at least slightly different than mine. And I'll give the reasons for both and invite anyone watching to comment their thoughts and whether they agree or disagree with either. But, and I know this is a big ask, can we at least do so like adults, not petulant little children? So my personal answer is, it depends. And I'll go into the detail on the whys and what fors in a second, but I want to preface it by saying that my answer is based on my personal experience, my past, which isn't as pristine as you might think. In fact, though I was a pimply-faced high schooler who, well, yes, I had some girlfriends and was anything but a player, as we were called then, when I got to college, well, let's just say those pimples fell off, and to say I was a Chad for about 5 years would be an understatement. So when I answer this question, I have to look at it and the potential woman as I would myself and how I would feel if someone held against me what I did literally 40 years ago. In other words, should I be judged as worthy or not based on who I was and what I did between 18 and 23? Or should I be judged on who I am now or have been in the recent past? And that's how I'd answer this young lady's question. Because if she or a woman in question was, let's call it an entertainer 10, 20, 30, or as in my case, 40 years ago, then in that case, I'd look at it a hell of a lot differently than if she were making content now. For me, it's a case of judge not, lest you be judged, but with a caveat. If you're performing now, then no, I would not be interested in dating or a relationship with you. It would be an absolute deal breaker for me. Again, what you do is your business, not mine. I'm not judging, but it's not something I would want to have someone I'm sharing a bed or life with doing. But if it was something she did in the past when she was younger and hadn't sense, well, as the saying goes, if I judged her for that, I'd be throwing stones in glass houses. I would be doing the very thing that I wouldn't want have happen to me. It would be nothing short of pure hypocrisy for me to do so, which is why for me personally, it depends. Now, having said that, as someone who speaks to hundreds of men each week and who has heard what they've had to say, I think my viewpoint isn't where most guys are. I don't know the breakdown of percentages, and in the end, it's probably immaterial, other than to say that a woman having that type of employment history, either now or in the past, is going to be a deal breaker for the overwhelming majority of men. And in fact, I'd say that number is very, very high. And it's not due to insecurity, as many women think and have argued in order to justify and excuse their actions, especially when they realize that the work they've been doing is why men are rejecting them. It's about respect. Respect for the man, respect for the relationship, and perhaps biggest of all, the respect, or as men see it, the lack thereof, the woman has for herself. Sorry, ladies, I know you may not like hearing that, but it is how men think. And I say that as someone who did a lot of bad things back in the 80s, and thus can tell you, men aren't wrong in that regard. I can tell you with absolute certainty, respect for myself or the women that I was with wasn't even in the cards, let alone on the table. And it really wouldn't be any different for you now. Again, I'm not saying that to be judgmental, but that is the reality of it all. And when you combine that with the fact that men think differently than women, it's why there's so much confusion among women. You see, women have this belief that men have high body counts, that they'll sleep with any warm body they can, that they spend hours and hours every single day, let's call it consuming content. That's a complete and utter falsehood, spread mostly by other women, usually to cover their own tracks and absolve themselves of taking responsibility for their actions. Add to it, even if they don't do that, most women tend to get their information about how men think, feel, and act, not from men, but other women. Women who usually have an agenda or are so filled with bitterness and hatred of men for rejecting them that they want to get as many other women as they can to join them in their misery. Women don't understand men because they don't actually listen to them. They don't speak to them. They don't see how men think, feel, and act. They get their information from other women. This isn't a new concept. It's been what's going on for decades now, which is why women have these false beliefs that men will screw anything, that all men are chads, if you will. The truth, ladies, the one you don't want to hear, is that most men don't sleep around. The ones who do, as I said, are a relatively small number. Sure, there's Tyrones and Chads who've slept with hundreds, perhaps even thousands of women. But as I just said, they are very, very few and far between. And almost all of them never find a true, happy, healthy relationship at any point in their life, which is why men find it so baffling that you women want to be with those men, and only those men. Then there's the, as I like to call them, wannabes. The immature boys trying to flex by saying that they've been with lots of women, but whose actual number is a lot lower than they want you to believe. Here's the reality, and I admit it's been a while, so my numbers may be a bit out of date, but the last I recall is that the average man has slept with 6. Let me repeat that. 6 women in his entire life. These days, many women seem to hit that number in a single night or weekend. Do you see the disconnect in that, ladies? Do you see why men not want to be with all y'all running around racking up high body counts in the hundreds or posting yourself all over the internet? And men know those numbers. They know the reality, which is why to them, a woman who puts herself out there in that way, who racks up the huge body counts or puts her body on display all over the internet, doesn't respect herself and thus in turn can't possibly respect him or their relationship, especially if she's doing it to make money. And I know what you're thinking, that it's men who are looking at those videos or going on those sites, which is a fair point. But the men who do that aren't what I'd call men. And I call them out all the time for doing it. I mean, to me, is there a bigger waste of money for a man to spend than that? It's like going to a restaurant, ordering the best steak on the menu, having the waiter bring it to the table, and then instead of eating it, you look at it for a bit and then get up and leave. No. And for the real men, the good men, while they may look or even sleep with a woman like that for, let's call it recreational purposes, be in a relationship with her or want to have children with her, not a chance. As I said earlier, what it mostly comes down to is respect, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing that men value. On top of it, women who do those things show that privacy, another thing that men value, is an afterthought. If she's putting her body out there for all to see, she's not going to have any problems putting your relationship or any dirty laundry within out there for the world to see as well. And that's something men absolutely will not put up with. And finally, men know that if she's exposing herself, then the likelihood is she'll continue to do so even when she's in a relationship. Leopards don't change their spots, and neither do leopardesses. And I could go into it more, but that alone should tell you what you need to know. Again, this isn't about being judgmental, but it does illustrate the differences between men and women and who or what they value in a potential mate. While women want the so-called popular guy, the Chad, if you will, who can bring them status and money, the two things that they value most, men want the complete opposite. They'd much rather have that plain Jane with a low body count and will avoid the woman who puts herself out there or has money. This shouldn't come as a surprise or upset anyone. This is the way it is, has been, and I hate to break it to you, always will be. It's who we are and how we're made up, and nothing is going to change that. While women value high body counts, wear them as badges of honor these days, men don't. Not for women, and not even for men. Yeah, you heard that right. I hate to break it to you ladies, but we men look down on those Chad types even more than you eventually do. Well, once you've been ran through by enough of them. We see them for who they are and understand that most of them have no clue what it means to be a true man. And thus they have no idea how to respect a woman or themselves. And I speak from experience in having done that very thing back in the day. Those women were numbers, notches on my bedpost. It's not something I'm proud of in any way. But it does mean that you've got to accept that the same thing that was for me also applies to you. Again, I'm not judging you or what you do, but you do need to accept the reality of it all. The bottom line is you're free to do whatever you want. If you think putting yourself out there to make money is the way to go, then by all means do so. But in doing so, understand that the likelihood you'll find a good man who will want to be in a relationship with you will shrink faster than a you-know-what in a cold pool. So what do you think, gentlemen? Do you agree with me? Disagree? Somewhere in between? Would you want to be in a relationship with a woman who makes money that way? Would you even go on a date with one? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you're made aware each time I release a video on the issues that men and boys face in today's modern society.